Have you ever looked at leftover food from last night and felt like you were doing the right thing? Saving, not wasting. Even thinking you were protecting your health by not eating too much freshly prepared, greasy food. Sounds perfectly logical, doesn't it? It's what we've been taught. But what if I told you that that seemingly good habit is actually silently eroding your health every day? After more than 30 years working with elderly patients, I've seen this happen repeatedly. A 68-year-old woman, she lived a very disciplined life. No eating indiscriminately, no wasteful spending. Every meal, she saved the leftover food. The next morning, she reheated the leftover rice. The following afternoon, she reheated the fried food from the day before. She believed that she was living the right thing. But after just a few years, her pancreas began to fail. Her blood sugar went out of control. Her body was constantly in a state of simmering inflammation for no apparent reason. What shocked her most wasn't the diagnosis, but when I told her, the problem isn't age. It was the very meals that she thought were safest. You see, many of the problems we call aging don't actually come from old age. They come from small habits repeated every day for years, especially a habit that almost everyone does, reheating food. Because when you do that, the food doesn't just simply heat up. At a level invisible to the naked eye, its structure changes. New compounds are formed. Some cause inflammation, some create free radicals, and some can damage your own DNA. The worrying thing is, you won't smell anything different. You won't see any different colors. There are no obvious warning signs. Only your body silently suffers. And then one day, you feel tired after eating. You notice your memory isn't what it used to be. You start relying on medication more, and you think, maybe I'm getting old. But no, in many cases, it's the result of what you eat and how you eat every day. So in this video, I'll share with you 5 very familiar foods that might be right in your kitchen. But when reheated incorrectly, they can become silent toxins directly affecting your pancreas, brain, and your entire metabolic system. And more importantly, I will guide you through a simple way so you can still eat those familiar foods in a safer way. Before we continue, I want to ask you something very honestly. How old are you? And do you often reheat food? Please share in the comments, because your answer may be accurately reflecting what's happening inside your body right now. And also most dangerous habits I see in many older patients. Reheating fried food. Sounds harmless, right? You fry fish, fried chicken, or simply a few potato chips. Don't finish them. And the next day, you just put them back in the pan or microwave to reheat. Very convenient. Very familiar. But this is where things start to go wrong. I remember a 72-year-old male patient. He used to be very healthy. He drove himself, took care of himself, and had no serious underlying conditions. But in recent years, he started experiencing chronic inflammation, persistent fatigue, and worsening metabolic indicators for no apparent reason. When I asked him about his diet, there was one small detail that repeated itself every day. He always reheated fried food. Not because he didn't know how to cook, because he thought that way it was economical and not wasteful. But here's what most people don't realize. Cooking oil is extremely unstable when exposed to high temperatures. Right after the first frying, the oil's structure begins to change. But when you reheat it a second time, that process doesn't just repeat, it accelerates. The oil begins to undergo a process called deep oxidation. And what's the result? It creates compounds called toxic aldehydes. These aren't harmless substances. They act like chemical sparks, traveling throughout your body, attacking cell membranes, and even damaging DNA. Even more worrying is that your pancreas is particularly sensitive to this type of damage. As these compounds accumulate over time, they trigger a prolonged inflammatory response, a condition many patients live with for years. And chronic inflammation is the foundation of so many serious illnesses, from blood sugar disorders to the risk of developing cancerous cells. The important thing is, you won't feel this immediately. There's no obvious pain. It's just, little by little, your body is being worn down. But the good news is, you can absolutely prevent this, starting with a very simple change. Never reheat fried food in oil. Instead, if you need to reheat food, use dry heat, like an oven or an air fryer. This method helps without reactivating oil degradation. Because your health isn't about how much you save. It's about how well you protect your body. Now, cooking oil is important, but it's only one piece, because the next food will surprise you. Let's talk about leafy green vegetables. Leafy green vegetables, especially those like spinach, have long been considered one of the healthiest foods you can eat. And that's absolutely true. They're rich in vitamins, rich in antioxidants, and they're great for your heart, brain, and eyesight. But here's the part most people aren't told. That benefit is only true when you eat them the right way. Because when reheated, a different process begins. I once had a 70-year-old female patient. She was very proud of her healthy diet. She ate boiled vegetables every day. And to save time, she would cook a large batch and then reheat it for later meals. She thought she was doing the best for her body. Naturally, leafy green vegetables contain nitrates, a completely harmless compound, even beneficial for blood circulation. But when you cook them and let them cool, natural bacteria start to become active. They convert nitrates into nitrites. And when you reheat them again, these nitrites can combine to form a group of compounds called nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are not neutral. They have been classified as possibly carcinogenic. These compounds can directly enter cells, impact genetic material, and damage DNA. And like I said before, there are no obvious warning signs. You still see the food as green, still think you're eating very healthy. Especially with the pancreas, an organ sensitive to chemical stress, processing these compounds can create a prolonged biochemical burden. The good news is, you don't need to stop eating vegetables. If there are leftovers, you can eat them cold, or even better, only cook enough for one meal. And if you thought leafy greens were worrying enough, the next part might really surprise you. It involves something practically in every kitchen: leftover rice. If you thought leafy greens were worrying enough, then the next part might really surprise you. It involves something that's practically in every kitchen: leftover rice. The scariest thing is, even if you reheat it, you still can't eliminate this danger. Most of us think heat is the ultimate cleanser, but with rice, that's a dangerous myth. The problem isn't just the rice, it's a specific type of bacteria called Bacillus cereus. These are not your typical germs. These bacteria produce spores that are heat resistant. They can survive the initial cooking process, waiting for the right conditions to wake up. I once treated a 75-year-old patient who loved making large batches of fried rice. He'd leave the leftover pot on the counter for hours before putting it away. He didn't realize that every minute that rice sat at room temperature, those spores were germinating and multiplying. When rice cools slowly, it enters the danger zone, the perfect temperature for bacteria to release toxins that heat cannot destroy. So when he reheated that rice the next day, he killed the bacteria, but the toxins remained. They were invisible, odorless, and ready to attack. For an older body, especially the pancreas and liver, processing these heat-stable toxins creates an immediate and severe biochemical burden. Repeated exposure can lead to chronic gut inflammation and even worsen existing blood sugar issues. It's a silent drain on your vitality. The good news? You can still enjoy your rice, but you must follow the 24-hour rule. Never keep cooked rice for more than one day. Cool your rice as quickly as possible, ideally within an hour, and get it straight into the refrigerator. Speed is your best defense. When you do reheat it, ensure it is steaming hot all the way through and only ever reheat it once, never twice. Your kitchen should be a place of healing, not hidden risks. Small changes in how you handle rice can protect your health for years to come. And if you think a hot bowl of soup is always the answer, you'll want to see Part 4. We'll be discussing the soup trap and why long simmering isn't always safe.
But the toxins remain intact, and when you eat it, these toxins go straight into your digestive system. They cause low-level but prolonged inflammation of the gut, a form of inflammation that you may not immediately recognize, but it sends continuous inflammatory signals throughout the entire body, including the pancreas. And over time, these silent inflammatory signals contribute to the weakening of the body's ability to regulate blood sugar, putting increased pressure on the insulin-producing cells. You don't see it in a day, but after months, years, your body starts to pay the price. This isn't a one-meal problem. This is a problem of repetition. The good news is, you can absolutely avoid this. If you cook rice, cool it down as quickly as possible. Don't leave the hot pot of rice on the stove for hours. Spread it out, to allow the heat to dissipate quickly, and refrigerate it within about an hour. When stored properly, you should eat it within 24 hours. And if you reheat it, make sure it's heated evenly and thoroughly. Not just warm, but completely hot, because warm is the danger zone. Blank, underscore, blank. Right finger, let me ask you something very honest. Do you often leave rice overnight and reheat it the next day? Please comment yes or no. I will read it all, and that will help me understand where you. Potatoes are one of the most familiar and pleasant foods. Easy to eat, easy to prepare, and for many older people, it's a food that provides a feeling of fullness, warmth, and security. But when it comes to reheating potatoes, the story changes completely. Because here, we're not just facing one problem, but two problems happening at the same time. I once had a patient, 69 years old. He loved potatoes. He would often boil a large batch, store it in the refrigerator, and reheat it gradually over several days. He thought it was a healthier option than rice. But over time, his blood sugar started to rise rapidly after each meal. He felt tired, sleepy, and sometimes experienced slight tremors after eating. What puzzled him was, he didn't eat any sweets, just potatoes. But this is something very few people are given a clear explanation for. When you cook potatoes and let them cool, some of the starch in them turns into resistant starch. This is a very good type of starch. It helps control blood sugar, nourishes the gut microbiome, and slows down glucose absorption. But when you reheat potatoes, especially at high temperatures, you destroy almost all of this resistant starch, and immediately, the potatoes revert back to being a fast-digesting starch. What does that mean? Your blood sugar spikes after eating, and your pancreas has to work harder, faster, to produce insulin to control this sugar level. Once, it might not seem significant, but if it happens every day, the beta cells in the pancreas, the cells responsible for producing insulin, start to become overloaded, tired, weakened, and over time, they gradually lose their ability to function effectively. It's a very insidious path, leading to metabolic disorders. But that's only half the problem. The other half is even more worrying. When you reheat potatoes at high temperatures, especially when the surface starts to dry out or slightly burn, a compound called acrylamide can form. This is a substance that many research organizations have warned about its potential to cause cancer. It forms more when starchy foods are cooked at high temperatures for a long time or reheated multiple times. So you're facing a double attack. On one hand, you lose the benefits of blood sugar control. On the other hand, you increase your risk of exposure to this toxic compound. And the important thing is, it all starts with a very familiar action: reheating. The good news is, you have a better option. If you've cooked potatoes, try eating them when they've cooled down, like in salads. This is how to retain resistant starch and reap its real benefits for your body. If you need to warm it up, use a low temperature. Just enough to reduce the feeling of cold, not to heat it completely. Because in this case, less is better. And if you think that's all, the next food item might be in your refrigerator right now. A very popular dish, very safe in the minds of many. But when reheated incorrectly, it can become an ideal environment for dangerous bacteria to grow. Let's talk about microwave chicken. Chicken has long been considered a safe source of protein. Less fat than red meat, easier to digest, and often recommended in the diets of older adults. But the problem isn't the chicken itself. It's how you reheat it, especially in the microwave. I've met many patients who told me, "Doctor, rest assured, I always reheat it thoroughly in the microwave. Surely no bacteria can survive." It sounds reasonable, but in reality, it's not that simple. I remember a 71-year-old male patient. He lived alone, and the microwave was his main assistant in the kitchen. He would often cook chicken in advance, store it in the refrigerator, and each meal he would just take it out and reheat it for a few minutes. Quick, convenient, and he believed it was safe enough. But then, he started experiencing recurring digestive problems. Bloating, unpleasant, sometimes mild diarrhea, not serious, but prolonged. And when we looked closely, the habit of reheating chicken in the microwave was a major factor. Here's what you need to understand. Microwaves don't heat food evenly as you might think. They create very hot spots and small, cold spots inside the food. The outside might be so hot it's steaming, but inside, there are parts that are only warm or even still cold. And it is these cold spots that become the ideal environment for bacteria to thrive. Especially a dangerous type of bacteria called Salmonella. This type of bacteria is often associated with poultry. If not completely destroyed, it can continue to multiply as the food cools down after reheating. And when you eat it, your body not only reacts to the bacteria, but also triggers an inflammatory response to fight them. For young people, the immune system can handle it quickly. But for older people, these inflammatory responses can last longer, be stronger, and affect many other organs, including the pancreas. And like what we've seen in previous sections, not just once, but repeatedly, day after day, silently, but cumulatively, the good news is, you don't have to give up chicken. You just need to change how you reheat it. If using a microwave, make sure you stir the food during the reheating process. Cut the meat into smaller pieces, for better heat distribution. And most importantly, check to make sure the entire piece of meat is heated evenly, no cold spots. Or even better, reheat it in a pan or oven. A little slower, but much safer, because when it comes to health, fast isn't always good. Now, we've covered each food type individually. But more importantly, is understanding the big picture. What is the real common thread behind all these risks? And why do they have such a strong impact on your body? We'll connect them all in the next section. By now, you might be thinking, so there are so many different foods to be careful about. Fried oil, leafy green vegetables, leftover rice, potatoes, chicken, each a different problem. But with over 30 years of experience in geriatrics, I can tell you something far more important. The real problem isn't with each individual food, it's with a common pattern that most of us repeat every day, without realizing it. That is, cooking right pointing arrow, letting cool right pointing arrow, improper storage right pointing arrow, reheating right pointing arrow, and repeating. Each step in that cycle, if not done correctly, can create changes at the molecular level. You don't see it, but your body registers it all. Repeated high temperatures alter the structure of fats. Slow cooling creates conditions for bacteria to thrive. Uneven heating leaves living spots for microorganisms, and some compounds, once formed, aren't even destroyed by heat. When you put all of that together, you see something very clear. This is no longer a story of individual foods. This is a story of accumulation. Little by little, every day, not causing immediate problems, but silently creating a prolonged inflammatory environment inside the body. And chronic inflammation is the foundation of many diseases we often call age-related. Blood sugar disorders, memory loss, prolonged fatigue, and many other metabolic problems. But the truth is, in many cases, this is not aging. This is the result of the accumulation of small habits, repeated over many years. And that also means, you have the right to change it. You don't need to wait until you have obvious symptoms. You don't need to wait for a diagnosis. You can start with very small things, right in your kitchen. How you cook, how you store, and how you reheat food. Because when you change the process, you change the results. Right finger, I want to ask you something very practical. Of the dishes we just discussed, which one do you reheat most often? Please share with me in the comments. Your answer could be the first step towards better understanding your own body. And now, when you understand why, we will move on to the most important part. How can you still eat and drink freely without harming your health? I will share with you a very simple but extremely effective process. You can apply it starting today. Now, after all we've talked about, you might be wondering, so what do I do? Do I need to change my whole eating habits? The answer is, no. You don't need to live a more complicated life. You just need to live a little more precisely. Through years of working with elderly patients, I've realized that it's not the healthy person who eats perfectly. It's the person who has the right process. And this is a very simple process that you can start applying today. First, think about cooking just enough. I know this isn't always convenient, but every time you cook too much, you're creating an opportunity to reheat. And as we've seen, it's the reheating that's the problem. If you still need to cook too much, then the next step is to cool it down quickly. Don't leave food sitting on the stove for hours until it cools naturally. That's the time when bacteria become most active. Instead, Divide the portions into smaller pieces. Spread the food thinly, and refrigerate within about an hour. Quick, but extremely important. Next is storage. Think of the refrigerator as a tool to slow down, not to completely stop it. Food shouldn't be kept for too long. A simple rule I always advise my patients is, if more than 24 hours have passed, think very carefully before eating it again. And if you decide to reheat it, do it decisively and properly. Not just warming it up, but heating it completely. No cold spots. Don't reheat it superficially. And with some foods like fried foods or leafy green vegetables, the best option is not to reheat it at all. It sounds extreme, but in reality, that's the simplest way to eliminate risk. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, listen to your body. If after a meal, you feel tired, bloated, uncomfortable, or unusually sleepy, that's not normal because you're getting older. It's a signal, a very clear signal, that your body is processing something that's not right. And when you start paying attention to those little signals, you'll gradually understand what's really good for you. Blank, underscore 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 underscore. You don't need to change everything in one day. Just start with one meal, a small habit, a better choice, and over time, those small changes will make a huge difference. Blank, underscore 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 underscore. Now, we have the how to do it. But there's one last thing I want you to remember. Not to worry you, but to help you understand the value of what you are doing. We will talk about that in the final section. Sao tat ka nung gi chung ta vu noi, toi muon ban dung lai mo chut, va sui gi ve mo du rat don jian. Suk ko kua ban, kong duok quay din boy mo buan. No duok quay din boy nung gi ban lam lap di lap lai, moi enge. Kong fi mo lan ban and com noi. Kong fi mo lan ban ham lai du chien. Ma la hang tram, hang non lan, trong suet nu nam. Du la cash ma nung tun thuong no, tik lui. Am tham, kong gay do ngay lap tuk. Kong dao ra do hu ro rang. Cho den ki mo enge, ko the ban bad do, len tieng. Ban cam thay met moi hun sao buan. Ban thay tri no kua min kong con nu truok. Ban nyan ra duong huyet bad do ko kiem sot hun. Va rat nu noi, goi dula, tui jia. Nung nu toi da chia say voi ban. Trong rat nu trong hop, du kong fi la lao wa. Dula ket qua kua nung lua chan no, lap lai theo thoi jian. Va du quan trong nyat ma toi muon ban no hom nela. Noi nung thoi quen no ko the gay ra venda. Ti chin nung thay doi no, kung ko the dao nguak shu hong du. Ban kong can fi and kieng kot khe. Ban kong can fi tu bo nung mon and quen thuok. Ban kai can hu ro hun, va lam dung hun. Now vua du hun mo chut. Bao quan can then hun mo chut. Va dak beat, can trong hun ki ham nong lai thukin. Du kong fi la nung thay doi lon. Nung voi ko the kua ban, chung dao ra su kak beat rat lon. Boi vi moi lan ban du avao ko the mo thuk fam, dung cash. Ban dang gmd mo fan gan nong cho he tiu wa. Ban dang bao vei tuyen toi. Va ban dang cho ko the min mo ko hoi de hot dong tat hun, lao hun. Chua bao gio la qua muon de bat do. Du ban dang o tui 50, 60, hey 70? Ko the ban van ko ka nong thich gi, va kai thin, noi ban cho no du keen fuhub. Blank, underscore, blank. Truok ki ket thuk, toi muon hoi ban mo cow hoi rat that long. Trong 5 lo I thuk fam home nay. Ban cam thay bad go nyat voi lo I now? Hey chia say o fan bin luan. Va noi ban thay video nay hu ik, hey gui no cho mo noi than kua ban. Boi vi doi ki, mo thong tin dung vao dung thoi diem. Ko the thay doi ka mo han trin suk ko. Chuk kak ban nu suk ko.